15 UFO pictures that prove aliens have been around for ages. Photos of UFOs have been around for almost 60 years or so. Usually, in grainy black and white in those early days, they provide some evidence to people that we are being visited, even while skeptics claim some of these might be carefully crafted hoaxes or spy planes of some sort. In the modern era, the whole buzz about UFOs didn't get going until the early 1950s, which leaves a lot of interesting questions about how far back in time the phenomenon goes. According to some, UFOs are not modern creations of overactive imaginations but a long-standing tradition in civilization's history. If you watch the History Channel's show, Ancient Aliens, you may have seen some of this evidence by now: cave paintings, stone carvings on pyramids, and old medieval paintings, all of which have some interesting resemblances to modern descriptions and pictures of modern aliens and UFOs. If you read some ancient Vedic writings, it talks about vimanas, a type of chariot or palace that the gods used to fly around the universe at great rates of speed. Many of the descriptions and pictures of vimanas look very much like UFOs, especially flying saucers some people now talk about. All of this, some UFO believers contend, could point to the existence of an interaction with an extraterrestrial species or set of species dating back to the dawn of human society. We can say, based on at least some of these 15 photos, that many older societies on our planet most likely believed in UFOs to some degree. 15. The Madonna UFO. This 15th century painting, which was most likely done by Domenico Ghirlandaio, hangs in Lesser in Palazzo Vecchio in Italy. While apparently just an ordinary sort of painting of a woman from the Middle Ages, you might notice in the background a strange object, almost saucer-like in appearance, hovering in the blue skies beyond. Off in the distance, to the right of the woman, a man and a dog are standing near a cliff, gazing up at the object in the sky. Since the painting is called Madonna with Saint Giovanna, we can assume the Madonna in the photo is the woman, while the man standing beyond is the saint mentioned in the title. Was the painter saying that some of the saints he knew of at the time were in some sort of rapport with the flying saucers? It seems like one possible theme of the painting. At least, it shows us that flying discs weren't an invention of 1950s imagination. 14. The medieval spacepods. Entitled The Crucifixion, this painting, created in 1350, is located above the altar in the Vysoki Decani monastery in Kosovo, Yugoslavia. It appears to depict two humanoid-like persons or beings moving among the stars in an orb-like object, similar to some reports of acorn-like UFOs sometimes in the skies today. Since the painting seems to relate to Jesus' Passion, we might wonder how the images here connect to that event. It seems likely that they might be something similar to the Star of Bethlehem, which was reported to be seen in the skies during Jesus' birth in Bethlehem. These ships appear to be stars in some ways. It's interesting to note that some UFO believers argue that the Star of Bethlehem was some sort of UFO and not a star, mainly because it moved in the story and didn't remain stationary. Is it possible that the painter was one of these early theorists? It remains to be seen. 13. A Handshape. This tapestry, created in the 14th century, depicts the life of Mary, mother of Jesus. The two on the right of the image on the tapestry appear to be two of the wise men, or magi, who visited Jesus in his infancy in Bethlehem. With a humble cloth around her head, Mary is on the left, staring sort of sadly or dejectedly at the ground. Just above her head, near some mansion-like buildings, is a picture of a hat-shaped flying saucer, or at least, it appears to be so at first glance. The tapestry hangs today at the French Basilica of Notre Dame in Beaune, Burgundy. It was designed and painted in 1330. An immediate guess is that the hat-shaped object appearing in the background was probably not intended to be some sort of flying hat. 12. UFOs near Mary again. This tapestry, entitled The Magnificent, appears right next to the one in the last post. This time, Mary is garbed a more royal costume, a purple robe, and we can see a red halo hovering over the top of her head. She is meeting someone who appears to be a queen or a royal person of some sort. It could also be a wise man or magi again, but it's unclear from the details we have. In the background again, we can also see a hat-shaped flying saucer off in a field nearby. This time, it's tilted up on its side, as if moving down at angle or hovering in the air at a steep angle, a position which would be uncomfortable for passengers on board. This tapestry hangs beside the last one also in Beaune, Burgundy, and was made around the same time in the 1300s. 11. Jesus UFO Legions. This painting, titled The Miracle of Snow, shows Jesus with a woman next to him, maybe Mary Magdalene, in heaven, looking down on an assembly of medieval period people below. Above the people's heads are a regular configuration of lenticular clouds that may represent the snow mentioned in the title. But are these clouds really depicting snow? Actually, these shapes look eerily similar to the shapes of some UFOs that many people say they encounter. It makes one wonder, was there perhaps a group which was trying to make these shapes look like clouds but really trying to get the message out there that there was a link between UFOs and Jesus? This whole idea almost sounds familiar. You may remember the Da Vinci Code and how Dan Brown theorized that there was a secret group of artists and thinkers in the Renaissance period who believed they were descended from the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. If Mary Magdalene is pictured in this photo, then it may point to a connection between this UFO believer group and the secret bloodline group, known as the Priory of Zion. 10. A UFO's Blessing. Completed in 1486, this painting appears to show a UFO in the sky off in the distance. In it, we can see a circular or donut-shaped object emanating a golden laser beam from the sky into an aperture in a building. The light passes into the building, striking the head of a woman, as if in a sort of blessing. The scene again depicts Mary, holding an infant in her arms, presumably the Christ child. While the photo appears to clearly indicate the presence of a ship in the sky, a closer look may indicate that it is a ring of clouds, arranged in some sort of miraculous pattern, but it's unclear exactly what the object is. The painting, called The Annunciation with Saint Emedius, hangs in the National Gallery in London. This painting, and others, certainly make one wonder whether there were groups considered heretical who were putting forward that UFOs were involved with Jesus' birth and life. Maybe they were doing this in a slightly mysterious way to avoid persecution, or perhaps they thought the UFOs were some sort of angels sent from God who must have been present at Jesus' time. 9. Moses and UFOs. In this painting, we see Moses receiving the 10 Commandments from the sky, but we wonder whether the artist is really saying here that the prophet got them from UFOs. Or perhaps he or she is saying that God travels in UFOs. There are different possibilities for interpretation, but the fact remains that there are some unusual objects in the sky in this artist rendering that look very similar to UFO photos off in the distance. In the painting in wood, we can see 4 or so dots that appear to be flying vehicles or perhaps birds. The painting, whose artist and date is unknown, is currently hanging in Conti de Tremond in Belgium. An interesting thing about these paintings is that Moses appears to have a light shooting up from his head, some sort of holy light. The objects in the sky also have the same color of light shooting upward, indicating a connection. 8. The Assumption of Mary. This black and white painting shows Mary ascending into the clouds near to the end of her term on earth, after bearing what many Christians believe was the Son of God. Interestingly, we see some unusual clouds around her ascension into heaven that look suspiciously like flying discs, particularly the ones of lenticular shape we sometimes see on photographs and cable TV shows. Below Mary, a group of disciples are gathered, apparently in fear about the miraculous event they are witnessing. On each of Mary's sides are angels with trumpets, which might distinguish the UFO-like shapes from angels perhaps. In total, there are over a dozen shapes that look like UFOs in this image. The painting was done by an artist named Anon in the year 1490. 7. The Glowing Wheels. Unlike the previous posts, this painting shows an actual representation of a UFO sighting report in 1697 and is not a flashback to biblical times. The sighting was allegedly comprised of 2 glowing wheels that hovered over the skies in Hamburg, Germany that year. In the rendering, which doesn't seem as masterful and professional as the previous paintings we saw, we see 2 spheres suspended in the air over Germany. Underneath them are a mountain range and a bunch of people staring up and pointing at the sight in the skies overhead. The spheres appear to be emanating some sort of smoke or light, radiating out from their edges, and notice how the objects appear to be mammoth in size relative to the people below. Since nothing human was flying back then, these cases become tougher to explain away, although at the same time, we don't have witnesses we can interview about the event. 6. The Baptism. You might be surprised to learn that this painting is not some modern depiction of a UFO encounter. Dating to 1710 and created by Flemish painter Aert de Gelder, The painting is titled The Baptism of Christ, giving Gelder's rendition of what befell there on that day when Christians believe Jesus received his first baptism with John the Baptist. The light coming from above, typically viewed as the Holy Spirit present at the ceremony, is painted as a flying disc. Was Gelder some sort of UFO believer who thought that God manifested through a variety of flying saucers that middle-aged people may have sometimes seen flying across the skies? It's difficult to tell. Painters like Da Vinci were notoriously quiet on the meanings of their works, leaving many puzzled about what they meant centuries later. But seeing this makes one wonder whether Gelder and others saw UFO encounters, whatever they were, as divine in origin. 5. Windsor Castle. This drawing was done after a UFO sighting in 1783 outside Windsor Castle in England. 4 witnesses to the event claimed they all saw a sphere, contained inside a cloud, move across the horizon at 9:45 p.m. at night. Pale blue in color, the object came to a halt in the sky and then became brighter, as it continued moving off to the east, where it changed direction, witnesses said. It was last seen in the southeast direction from the castle. The light it emitted was prodigious, according to the witnesses, and lit up everything on the ground beneath it before vanishing. The sighting was recorded the following year in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society. The event was witnessed by Thomas Sandby, founder of the Royal Society. 4. Ancient Eastern Texts. This photograph above is from an ancient text from the East called the Prajna Paramita. In it, we can see a type of guru figure, enthroned in front of a number of disciples or friends. There are some fires lit in front of them, and there are a number of racks set up with food or water. To the right, however, are some by now familiar shapes in Western painting, 2 hat-shaped objects hovering mid-air between the 2 figures squatting in front of the fire. Reports of the flying vehicles are also present in the well-known text, the Ramayana, in which it says Lord Rama, as well as his mortal foe Ravana, sometimes traveled long distances in a flying machine. There are also many texts in India, still untranslated, that speak of a flying ship resembling flying saucers. These are called vimanas and are thought to be flying palaces or chariots. 3. The Ancient King. By some accounts of avant-garde theorists about Egypt, aliens may have been responsible for building the pyramids of Giza, one of the world's 7 wonders. Regardless of whether you believe this seemingly wild theory, it is interesting to discover that modern builders are baffled as to how the pyramids were built. A modern skyscraper builder has stated that he does not currently have the technology and means to make the pyramids the way they did, so for many it begs the question of some outside intervention other than humans. At any rate, there's some interesting images of what appears to be some sort of UFOs inscribed on the pyramid's walls. Take this example in the photo above. A sphere radiating some sort of luminescence is radiating light on the hands of some royal entourage of Egypt. The group appear to be holding their hands up in suppliance to the sphere, which appears to have a godlike presence in the representation. We might speculate that the sphere is the sun or some godlike energy descending to earth. Or we could speculate the orb is some sort of UFO. 2. Egyptian saucer. This interesting set of hieroglyphs depicts a radiating disk object, which again might represent the sun. This time, however, we see a capsule-like object with a being inside it contained within the radiating light. The being appears to have a flattened head and shortened stature, similar in appearance to the one Elliot meets in Steven Spielberg's movie, E.T. The object itself looks similar to many UFOs drawn and photographed, but its dome is more concave-looking than the hat-shaped UFOs we saw before in all the Christian paintings. While this all doesn't prove that ETS created the pyramids, this hieroglyph does suggest there was some belief in flying spaceships during the ancient Egyptian times. Since the figure doesn't look human, we can also suppose that the Egyptians believed in some sort of beings from outer space who weren't human. This hieroglyph is found in the Dendera temple in Egypt. 1. The Angry Mayan Alien. This stone relief engraving from the ancient Mayan culture shows a man bowing to something. We're not sure what he's worshipping, but we probably suspect that it might be the being above him, hovering over him in spaceship-like object. The object is lenticular, meaning it looks like a lens almost, and there are tentacles, exhaust fumes, or organic material such as creepers dangling from the bottom of the vehicle. The being inside the craft appears to be angry, and his eyes are large and almond-shaped, similar to the common facial descriptions of a gray alien. He's also wearing a type of vest with 2 belts forming an X on his chest. Some people believe the stone engraving may be depicting the Mayan god Quetzalcoatl, but it might also be depicting a type of alien. Or are they the same? It is believed by some researchers that the ancients revered the beings from the stars and sometimes worshipped them as gods descending to Earth.